Hey there, sports fans. My guest today is Rick, who is a die-hard Toronto Maple Leafs fan. But when he attended a hockey game at the Scotiabank Arena with a business client, the last thing Rick expected to happen was for him to be frog-marched out of the venue by security guards and Toronto police officers. So the question arises, what heinous thing did Rick do? Was he setting off fireworks? Was he uttering profanities? Did he throw something on the ice? Well, no, and no. Apparently, Rick said something that was considered to be a politically incorrect metaphor. And that metaphor triggered a snowflake staffer at the concession stands who screamed for security. It's baffling. To try and make sense of it all, Rick joins me now. Now, Rick, before we get into the nitty-gritty of your case, in the Department of Full Disclosure, folks, I've met Rick several times at freedom rallies when he was donning his alter ego of Victor Mashugana. You know, Rick, I've always found you to be a happy warrior. You're always joking about the condition of our mad, mad world. You're never violent. So let's just throw to a clip that was caught a few years ago.
Young Dundas Square has become Tiananmen Square.
Yeah, well,
Red Square, we could walk around.
did you ever imagine you would see Toronto in this situation, sir, where freedom of expression, freedom of assembly, even freedom of the press is being shut down?
Sir, here's your ticket. Here's your ticket, sir. And I'm going to ask you again to leave the area, okay? Thank you.
I say that let's walk and talk because
Okay, then.
I don't feel like going to 52 Division. It's not such a nice place. I've been in worse gulags, but
Right.
I believe in this here, Mr. Menzies. I believe the puppy. I believe that our ancestors fought and died so that we could be free, so we could have a charter.
Well, not a lot of freedom going on here, is there?
These men are urinating and defecating on the cenotaphs of every dead soldier across Canada.
Wow, now that was a fun day during those dark times of COVID-19 insanity. So let's get back to the subject du jour, Rick. You go to a Toronto Maple Leafs game against the Chicago Blackhawks. You're entertaining a business client. During the second period intermission, you go to make a transaction. What happened?
Well, what happened, David, was I was unaware. I'd forgotten that the Scotiabank Arena was a totally cash-free venue.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, it's part of the digital world in a very big way. A lot of people aren't aware, and I don't know if it's because they don't trust their people working with cash or whether they've just got on that bandwagon.
Scotiabank Arena is a fully cash-free venue that only accepts debit and credit cards, including major contactless and payment methods for a safe and speedy checkout. MasterCard is a preferred payment method.
Their parking garage, by the way, you can pay cash. So It's a bit of a oxymoron going on there.
Yeah, I thought cash was king, but
Well, in their world, they've thrown it out, kind of like me. So I went to one of the beverage stands. I was just getting our first refreshments of the night, actually. And the guy said, "Look, sir, I'm sorry, we don't take cash. You're going to have to go down to the machine, and it's right down there, and it'll give you a voucher." And I said, "Oh, okay." And then you can use that. So it's kind of like a reverse ATM.
okay.
So I walk up to this reverse ATM, and I'm looking at it, figuring it out, and navigating, and I put in my cash. And I happened to say to a girl that it was at the next concession stand right beside this machine. I said, "It looks like we're all becoming slaves to the digital era." And then it spit out my thing, and I said, "Oh, and it's a MasterCard. Isn't that ironic?"
In terms of master and slaves.
Well, yeah.
Okay.
And she said, "What?"
Oh, no.
And I said, "We're all slaves of the digital era, and they're even giving us a MasterCard to rub it in." She said, "You said massa." Now, David, I've worked with words long enough that affectations and elocution is something I take kind of seriously
Yes.
and professionally. And I know that I didn't pick up a Boston accent all of a sudden or mispronounce that word. And then it didn't even click to me what she was offended by.
Right.
Before I could even say, no, here's the third time, a security guard showed up almost spontaneously and said, "What's the problem, sir?" I said, "I don't have a problem. I just said this." And I repeated to him. So that would have been my third repeat of it all. And he said, "You're going to have to leave, sir."
But what is it that this woman at the concession stands thought you were saying or thought you were implying, Rick?
I think she was trying to make it to racialize it, basically. And that's the last thing that I'm all about. I grew up with a multicultural, multiracial family and friends.
Yeah.
And that's just not my nature. So she tried to make it about that. And so did the security guard. And in that much time, in the time we've been explaining this, 3 Toronto police officers came.
Oh, okay. I got to stop you there, Rick. I mean, we have people literally getting murdered on the subway.
Mm-hmm.
We have random attacks. We have often parks overrun by violent offenders. And there's 3 cops dispatched to deal with this?
A sergeant and 2 constables.
A sergeant?
Now, that tells me that it wasn't really that busy inside. And I also know I've got a lot of police buddies, so I know that they're on a pay duty.
Yeah.
So it's not like the city's missing them, but they're getting paid by MLSE
Yeah.
to do whatever MLSE people tell them to do.
And what do the cops tell you?
Sir, you do have to leave, and everything that you say and do is on body camera. And
I'd welcome that because as far as I'm concerned, you didn't say or do anything wrong.
I actually did. I said, I'm quite familiar with your equipment. My friend was the inventor.
Oh, wow.
in Arizona. And so I realized that, this wasn't a fight I was going to win or an argument I was going to win. And I obliged them and went outside and just paced for a little while. And
Rick, meanwhile, your business client, he's still in his seat.
Oh, yeah. He's wondering what the heck's going on.
And did you explain that to them? That
I didn't have time to, David. They did not want to hear what I had to say. So here we have...
And by the way, I think that's deplorable policing because there's 2 sides to every story, and clearly they weren't interested in getting your side.
Well, I do want to perhaps take this up with professional standards. And I've got all their numbers and their names and so forth. So that's not off the table. I just wanted to, first of all, reach out to MLSE, which I did, and gave them an account of everything that happened verbatim. And
MLSE, once they went into investigation mode, what did they tell you, Rick?
Well, I can tell you almost precisely what they said here. They handed it. I sent it right to Mr. Tenenbaum. I thought, why not start at the top?
Larry Tenenbaum, the owner of the...
Yeah, and the other 2 partners in that are Bell Media and Rogers Media. Yeah. So I don't expect I'm going to get a lot of coverage from them. So I heard back from a girl there named Julia McGrath, who is the assistant customer service manager. And she quoted to me that I had breached the fan code of conduct. And she had several accounts of it.
And what part of the fan code of conduct did you breach?
David, this remains the million-dollar question because I've read the fan code of conduct. I've just repeated to you folks exactly what I said verbatim. Yeah. To me, it didn't put anybody in danger. They want to have a safe, comfortable, and enjoyable experience that is inclusive, free of discrimination and harassment in all of other venues.
But you uttered a metaphor about us, consumers being slaves and MasterCard. How does that make an and there's the MasterCard.
That's the MasterCard I got. And I didn't even get a chance to put the PIN number on this. So they've got my money. I've got their card that I can't even use.
Unbelievable.
Right now.
And by the way, Rick, I did reach out to the website for the Leafs. I've got a copy of the fan code of conduct. There seems to be about 20 stipulations. So Let's see. They say conduct that is illegal. That's offside. Well, of course it would be. Displaying signs, symbols, images that are offensive. Displaying signs or images for commercial purposes. Setting off fireworks. Weapons of any kind, including pepper spray, stun guns. Possession of alcohol not purchased inside the venue. It goes on and on and on. There's nothing there about making a metaphor that some staffer construed as being, I don't know, racist or offensive. I mean,
no.
It's a mystery to me. And I should tell you, Rick, I did reach out to Dave Haggett, the spokesman for the Toronto Maple Leafs, and he simply said that according to their investigation and witnesses, you broke the fan code of conduct. I responded by saying, which stipulation? And they say, we stand by our statement, which to me is a non-statement. So what in blue hell did you break?
Well, I asked twice to the woman who contacted me. And I said, I'm not asking for my accuser's name or confidential information, because she tried to say, I can't tell you as a matter of confidentiality. So basically, it's almost like the thought police. We accuse you, therefore you are guilty.
But the confidentiality, you're the guy that was being persecuted.
You would think so.
And you said you're not asking for the name of the person that took offense.
No.
So, of course they can tell you, but they won't tell you.
Well, I'd like them to, because in doing so, they're going to realize that there's nothing to tell.
Yeah.
As somebody, I once asked a famous convict or criminal, supposedly, was Reuben Hurricane Carter, and I asked him, what was the evidence that got you out of jail? And he said the evidence was there was no evidence.
Yeah. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, Rick, there is no there.
No. And so I took it a little further when I reached out to them, and I was a little bit mystified, because I call this hypocrisy, because Bell and MLSE and Rogers are in partnership with OVO, which is the crib for a lot of rappers in this city.
Right.
And apparently, you can go on stage in the Scotiabank Centre and use the N-word repeatedly all night long. And I'm not talking neighbor. You can use the MFer word all night long. You can talk about shooting people in the face and selling drugs. And I don't know what kind of example they're trying to set for our community and our city. But I say to you, Bell, you talk about, let's talk about that. Let's talk about your hypocrisy.
Rick, this is a fantastic point you bring up, because if you as a fan at a sports game, whether it's the Raptors, Leafs, whoever, and you use the N-word, you said mother blank, that would be a violation of their code of conduct in terms of offensive language. But when it's an artist bringing in, I guess, millions into the arena in terms of revenue, well, suddenly this so-called code of conduct, it gets put on the shelf.
Yeah, and they can even sing about murders and crimes that are real. It's called drill rap, David. There's an actual thing. There's a prosecutor in Atlanta named Fonnie T. Willis, who has actually prosecuted and incarcerated rappers who were confessing to their crimes on their albums. And maybe our city needs to look at something like that, because who knows what's going on and what they're talking about amongst each other on stage.
Yeah, that's entertainment. Rick, we're running out of racetrack here, but here's a question I have for you. They won't tell you what code of conduct you broke.
No.
They won't tell me as a member of the media what code of conduct stipulation you broke. I'm thinking, if I were in your shoes, and I'm not advising you, but I think I would actually commence legal action, even a small claims court, because they can give you and me the bird, but they can't give a judge the bird. And I think the first question a judge would say is, what did Rick say or do that was so offensive that you frog marched him out the venue?
I think we have it's kind of like the Ash Milgram effect. When enough people see something happening, they get in the parade. and they condone it. I did reach out to a friend of mine who's a lawyer who happens to be black, and that's his response there.
What the F?
It's the long firm of WTF, and he knows me and couldn't make sense of this. But his credo, you can.
I love that. Discriminate against fools. Geez, I wonder if that's a violation of the Toronto Maple Leafs Code of Conduct.
He'll let them know.
Wow. So I guess, Rick, what you're saying is you're considering legal action by reaching out to this individual.
I'd like to be a gentleman. Or a mensch, Larry, if you're listening. I've tried, and your people made a mistake. I'm not here to make this about an all about me project. I'm more concerned about the next person. You had a picture hanging in the old venue at the Gardens of this man here who was a family friend. His name was Earl Walls. He was a Canadian heavyweight champion. But his grandfather his great-grandfather was John Freeman Walls, who was the conductor for the Underground Railroad in Canada. So I have got a little more than just a little bit of black history and a few black friends, and go back further. So I hope you'll maybe consider hanging his picture at the Scotiabank, and I hope maybe you'll consider reimbursing me for my out-of-pocket. I wanted to get back. And maybe you can tell me how to use this or to redeem it for some kind of privilege card.
Rick, this is the most unbelievable story. Please stay in touch if you do pursue legal action. And folks, what can I say? I mean, his alter ego, Victor Meshuggah is Yiddish for crazy. And this is the craziest story of all. And if anyone from MLSE is watching this, why don't you put political correctness and wokeism and virtue signaling on the shelf? Why don't you concentrate on, winning a Stanley Cup? It's been over half a century already, for God's sakes. What a story. We will follow this to see if Rick indeed gets any resolution in the near future.
Do you think we'll hear from John Tory's mistress, David?
Well, you know what? You should have said you're John Tory's mistress. Then you know what happens? MLSE gives Rick a job.